So in this series, we want to be able to go into belief, talking about as far as for Malcolm, but also as our show is for cultivating the culture. One of the things with the attack on our culture has been attack on our faith, attack on our belief, whether you're Muslim, Christian, a Hebrew. They have attacked us to get us to be in a state of disbelief, to not have a fear of God. And with that, we become weak. I put up a post the other day about saying that that hip hop did not create the culture created hip hop. And so people had asked the question, what do you mean by that? Well, like I said, I moved to the Bronx in '69. I was 5 years old. In '75, actually I lived in the Bronx over by Shakespeare Avenue, right over across from Manhattan, 170th and Shakespeare Avenue in the Bronx, and we had, and then I moved over to River Park Towers. By 13, that's where it's near Cedar Park. You can walk down the street. That's when they used to have the jams and all of that and stuff. And Kool Herc lived up in Sedgwick Avenue, pretty nice building compared to Towers was nice, but it's a nice building. So I'm pretty aware, active with the hip hop in the culture. But the culture the hip hop didn't create New York. Hip hop didn't create our swag. Hip hop didn't create us. We created it. So just because a person is an entertainer doesn't mean they represent our culture. Our culture, it was a strong culture. So going back to Malcolm, how does this relate to Malcolm? Well, Malcolm was in New York, and he died in '65. Hip-hop, we really started 75, 77, by 77, 78. Then, of course, you had your first records that came out by 80. So here it is, people still thinking about Tupac, right? It's been 20, 30 years, since he passed, but they're still thinking about this guy and talking about him, right? I said, so what about Malcolm? If you think a rapper, a MC, had some effect on the people, that they still talking about Tupac, what do you think about Malcolm in New York? What do you think about the effect that he had? And then the thing about Malcolm, and especially the culture, because our culture was not just, music. No, our culture was something that started from before slavery. All the different people were coming to Harlem, coming to New York. And then with Marcus Garvey movement that happened in the 20s and all the way into really the 30s, even though they left him, they locked him up and stuff, they still had a lot of that. So when Malcolm came, who was a Garveyite, and his father was a Garveyite, and he came into the Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam had 400 followers. So within 7 years, they ended up like 200,000 followers, because he saw Elijah, and he believed in him, and he went around, and he actually incorporated a lot of the things that the Garveyites did. So when Harlem saw that, when Harlem heard his message, when Harlem heard what he was talking about, doing for South and organized, they pretty much went with it, because our culture that we had of conscious people throughout the city, dealing with the Marcus Garvey, W. Du Bois, all of these people just out of play in power, and all of it just keeps going on. So you develop the culture of men, develop the culture of women, develop a culture of standard of thinkers, you see? And so this thing that you today, what you call hip hop, or, the MC music, because when it first came out, we had B-boys and MCs. I'm from the Bronx, so really we call B-boys Bronx boys, but, they call it break boys and stuff. So with this culture of hip hop was actually an off branch of that type of mentality, you see? And so a lot of the things that we put out, the music that we put out, the message that we put out in our culture was positive, you see? Why? And it was a reflection. So going back to it, Malcolm, like I said, Malcolm died in 65. So by 75, you still had a lot of the culture. The New York was also attacked with heroin to be able to get that culture destroyed. And when Malcolm was killed in '60, then '68, Martin was killed. So after that, then what happened in New York? Then the heroin came in. When you had this drug, the drugs came in, it destroyed this culture, destroyed the mentality, destroyed the people. But like you said, but it also took us away from our belief system, our religious system, what our leadership was about. So we're trying to come back, trying to bring the people back to the truth, trying to bring them back to the system. So I'm going to get back on Malcolm, but I wanted to give you a history as far as how does this have to do with cultivating culture. Cultivating culture, we want to try to bring our people back to belief. And it's not just, the Muslims. We want the people to have the first to believe in our Creator, belief in His angels, the belief in His books, the belief in His messengers, the belief in the Akhirah, the last day, and belief in the next life. And so, as I've always told you before, with our program, we have, as you see with the church, Jamaat al-Sijin. It's a prison dawah, or prison. We go to the prisons, work with the people. We assist the people in the basic education of belief and faith and practice with Islam. And Jamaat al-Sijin means Jamaat is a congregation, Sijin is a prison. So Jamaat of the prison. And it's a double play with the words, because our prophet has said that the life of this world, the dunya sijnun al-mu'min, the life of the world is a prison to the believer. And for those that don't believe, it's their paradise. So when we go to the prison, we work with the brothers, and we try to remind them that that when you go back out on the street, don't act like this is your paradise. Because if you're acting like this is paradise, it's a form of acting like disbelievers. So we had the shirt and we had the effort.